From Beyond Marketing, it's the 20-Minute Call, a podcast about the dreamers, boundary pushers, rebels, and champions of the skydiving industry. Each episode is a narrative journey highlighted by the highs, lows, and luck that the skydiving industry delivers, as told by the most influential people within the sport. If you've ever dreamed of becoming a skydiver, perhaps opening a drop zone, or becoming the next world champion, check out the 20-Minute Call hosted by me, James LeBarry. My guest today is a global ambassador for the sport and soon-to-be member of the International Skydiving Hall of Fame. Within months of his introduction to skydiving, Shannon Pilcher began competing in four-way FS. Between 2003 and 2010, as a four-way FS and canopy piloting competitor, Shannon earned 14 first-place titles and 3 seconds, broke 3 world records, and represented the USA at 4 world meets and 6 World Cups. He was integral in defining and promoting canopy piloting, including establishing the PD factory team and Flight-1 canopy school, and being featured in a documentary entitled Sky Jumpers, which can be viewed on Amazon Prime. Additionally, he has served as a coach for the Australian, Austrian, Brazilian, British, Canadian, Irish, and Norwegian national teams, and has worked with elite military operations and SDC Rhythm XP. It should also be mentioned he was the 2006 Skydiver of the Year in Skydiving Magazine. Today, he serves as a leadership coach specializing in organizational and leadership development, working with some of the top executives in the highest echelons of the business world. Welcome to the 20-Minute Call podcast, Shannon Pilcher. Shannon, how are you?
Thank you, James. I'm good, man. Good to see you.
Good. As we speak, I'm hearing a little background. You are currently in Israel.
I am in Israel. Yeah, sorry, my daughter's in the background watching television.
That's quite okay.
I'm in North Tel Aviv. This is our 3rd consecutive summer, spending the entire summers here. My wife is from here, which many of the listeners will know, and we used to come once or twice a year for a month at a time. And when we had our daughter, we decided we want to try to concentrate that time here a little bit more.
Fantastic, great. When I was just reading your bio in the intro, and you're hearing your sort of the career highlights for you in 4 paragraphs, how does that hit? How does that land for you?
I mean, it makes me squirm.
Does it?
Yeah, especially because I can see you reading it, so it was even more awkward. I've had to turn in a resume and a bio hundreds of times, it seems like, and so I'm used to hearing it and reading it and everything else. And it's kind of like each person who presents it chooses their own flavor and their own highlights from the bio, right? So that was more my curiosity, is like, I wonder what James is going to shine a light on here.
A little bit of everything. Of those career accomplishments that I read, is there any one particular that you're proud of?
Yeah, I mean, there's two, and they're I think they're kind of obvious. It's the factory team and Flight-1, both of which are still exist and still not only sustaining but I would even say, continuing to grow and improve. And so I have while I'm less involved in the PD factory team, I am involved in both entities, and it's kind of for Ian and myself and Jay and JC, 3 of my partners with each of those organizations. It's kind of it's our baby, we've brought those beings to life, and I think they'll always be something we take care of.
It's very rare. I mean, I can't think of very many people where, like, if you want to have a career in the sport, you're limited to DZ operations or instructing or working for a manufacturer. And you all created these things. Did you say that's serendipity or very intentional, or how do you explain that?
I guess I can say this. I just had a conversation with someone working for you, Brittany, who's writing the Hall of Fame piece about me and probably some of the others. And we had a wonderful hour conversation. And she asked some very similar things, or she, at least the same vein of the sentiment of the same vein, which was just, we were talking about how things kind of just fell in our laps in a lot of ways. And we talked about that whole concept of, you can be prepared and you can kind of dot your I's and cross your T's and do everything you can to be ready. But if it's the wrong timing or you're not in the right place at the right time, then things can pass you by. And on the other side of that, if you are in the right place at the right time, then things seem to magically work out. And I've had so many of those moments in life where it just seems like, wow, just good breaks, good luck. And I still categorize it as that many times. But I've also learned to recognize that if I hadn't prepared myself, or we hadn't prepared ourselves and done the work and did the studying and the schooling or whatever needed to be done, then when that moment happened, we wouldn't have been ready. So it's that constant, synthesis of being in the right place at the right time, but also being ready when it hits you, when it gets there.
When preparing for these interviews, I think about having empathy. And when I think about knowing you, the word I associate with you is intentional. You're very intentional about the way you go about doing things. And when I think about you working for sort of an engineering firm and then leaving what is secure, like we all are sort of conditioned to think security, we got to go to college and get that job. And then you leave and you go to DeLand and you fully immerse yourself in training on a four-way team and take a job at Skydiving Magazine. Nothing could be more counter. So in having empathy, this is a very long-winded question, but it doesn't compute for me. How did you justify that decision? Because it didn't seem the intentional path.
Justify the decision to jump engineering tracks and just skydive.
Yeah,
forever.
That's very non-safe, if you will, in terms of security.
Yeah, it's funny. I want to answer that specific context, and first I want to say, because this is helping me, is there have now been a series of moments in my life, and because of my podcast that I was doing, and I hope to do again. I'm very, very caught up in choices, right? Like what you're asking me about now is how did I navigate that choice, and what sense did I make of it at the time? There have been, because I've done so much reflection on this and talking with others, there have been a number of milestones in my life where it was very similar. Like it was kind of like just going for it, despite what everything is telling you, despite the logic, despite the rationale, despite the risk, and time again, it proves fruitful. So this isn't just now coming to me in this conversation. In the recent years, it's become like the opportunities are behind those moments of decision, those choice points. There's opportunities behind them. In one of the seminars that I give, I say, behind one door is many more. Because if we can just open that door and get through there, even no matter how risky or scary or traumatizing it seems, it often just, there's a whole world behind it. And so I've just really learned, whenever I encounter the fear and the apprehension and exactly that, that's where I stop and look a little more carefully, because behind there are usually the floodgates. So specifically to that context about jumping ship from engineering to skydiving, I talk about this in one of my intro podcasts, but I had broken my leg, and then I had broken my back, and then a year later I had broken my leg, and then my dad died. Suicide. It was quite traumatic. I had a younger brother and sister. I had a brand new career as just graduating college, and had all this stuff lined up. we had a dream to be four-way world champions that was also percolating strong, like really bubbling strong. This is so funny. All of that's whirling in my head, and the movie Point Break comes out. And I really know that it's so cheesy, but I think that's part of the straw that broke the camel's back. It was just like, I'm right now I'm setting myself up to be confined to a 60-hour work week job. And I was driving home, falling asleep on this 30-minute drive home every night. And it was just a few months of that. And it was all I needed with all that whirlwind in my head to go, no, I'm not going to get caught in this rat race that we call life, working to live. And so that was what made it easy. And I had a whole team of people that all wanted to move to DeLand with me to win a four-way world championship. So it was quite easy at 24 years old or 23 years old. You're not worried about the next dollar and the next, you're just living life, So with all that in my head, it was quite easy. And the last thing I'll say is on the drive to Florida, I stopped to see my uncle, my mom's brother. And as I was leaving, he gave me a hug, and I was in near tears because my truck was packed, and I had made the decision. I was setting sail to Florida, and he held me by the shoulders and he pushed me out in front of him with tears in my eyes, and he said, "You're doing the best thing you could ever do for yourself and for your family." And that was 27 years ago, and I'll always hold on to that because it just gave me that little bit of reassurance I needed, because there was a lot of doubt, right? It didn't feel right. I was kind of abandoning a widowed mother, a younger brother and sister, a career, all of those things. Long-winded answer. I'm sorry, but that's...
I am, again, from empathy, right? You lose your dad to suicide. That's heavy. I know your brother has taken a tough path.
Yeah.
With drug abuse, but you seem like so adjusted, and yet there's been trauma, right? Like, what do you attribute that to?
I think it's I hate to say it, it's pent up. It's pent up. Maybe it hasn't yet come out. There's all these modes of healing these days, whether it's psychedelics or meditation or hypnosis. And sometimes I wonder, maybe I've yet to wrestle with some of the trauma in my closet.
A quick break here to address the Drop Zone owners listening to the pod. If you're a DZO, then you know the insanity of taking your passion and making it your business. Why'd you do that? Running a DZ is hard. Between the stressors of liability, 30-day payment terms on fuel after 4 weeks of miserable weather, and angry staff who are convinced they've been skipped in the rotation, you need a tool that helps reduce your stress. Enter Burble software. All right. Conceived by a DZO who's been in the trenches just like you, Burble is the most sophisticated manifest and booking software on the planet. Your life as a DZO is hard enough. So don't be that DZO who tries to save a few bucks using software that wasn't built for us. Burble, the must-have drop zone management software for the 182DZ to the multi-turbine monster. Burble. I sometimes wonder, as high achievers, what drives that? Is it just a natural inclination to want to be great, or is it that we're fleeing from or responding to certain things? Like, for example, I got the opportunity to come to America, and I saw my parents killing themselves to get us here. I'm driven, but part of me also wonders, well, I don't want to squander the opportunity. I don't know, but I often wonder what fuels high achievers as you've achieved so much, and looking at the narrative going, I wonder if Shannon has just been driven not to go down a certain path and be at the highest of whatever he accomplishes.
Yeah, I don't know. I think about those things a lot too. So I don't know if there was really a question there. I'll tell you one of the things that comes to mind often for me is, this is me at 52, and I'm looking back at a lot of those things you read on that list. I'm proud of them. I'm proud of them mostly because of the team of people that it always took. Like I don't know that I did anything by myself. I don't know that I ever have. So that's what makes me proud of it. I'm not proud actually of having been or even continuing to be an overachiever. Like I'm actually a little bit ashamed of that because in my newer spirituality, if you will, just my recognizing that as humans, we're constantly fighting this unconscious battle tension between doing and being. And I'm just so much more in this time in life trying to be and trying to do less and be more. And because of that, I almost get a little bit sick at myself for constantly trying to do, constantly pursuing. And because it's exhausting, and two, because I think it's a little bit of a deception. It's like control. I know I'm kind of going off on the deep end here. We could go off on the deep end, but the illusion of control has been a big one for me for the last 2 years. And I would venture to say that we have no control in this life. And we can really go deep on that, but back to where you started, just the overachievers. I don't know. You didn't really ask anything. Those were my thoughts on it. Yeah.
I'm doing a great job of being.
It's all good. It's conversation. It doesn't have to be a question answer.
What were you like as a kid, Shannon? How would you describe yourself?
I was a lot like I am now. One of the trademarks for me, and I'm very happy about this, I can't take any credit for it, but I've always just been who I am and been pretty comfortable with that. What I was thinking of is that I've always been a bit of a chameleon. And the way that looked in high school is, literally, I kind of often had kind of shoulder length hair. I had a mullet at one time, because I was a kid of the 80s and 90s, but I was an athlete and I ran with the hoods, I hung out with the blue jean jackets and the cigarettes, and I wasn't a smoker, but with those guys or people, and I played basketball, football, baseball, and rode BMX, and I fit in so great with all of them. And to this day, probably one of my greatest attributes is that I'm really a people person, and I love people, and I'm endlessly fascinated, and I can talk to anyone. Sharon, my wife, she just laughs at me almost every day because I'll just get caught in conversations with the elevator or the doorman or whatever, and really enjoy it. So
I do find you to be very curious, and I imagine you to have been very conscientious, because I feel like you're very conscientious about, or intentional as well. Was there anything as a kid that would have given an indicator of what your life would become?
No, but I'm sorry if I take these in the direction you don't want to go.
No, you can take it anyway.
It makes me think of the performance anxiety again, James. I'm not performance anxiety. Sorry, the overachievers, and I've just realized in recent years that especially after my accident, and then coming back to the sport and trying to participate at the same level that I did before, or to start new endeavors like free flying or angle flying, things like that, and realize that it's harder for me to learn than it used to be, not only because of age, but because of physical setbacks. And I realized that I'm so performance driven that for a long time I've been wrestling with, where does that come from? Why am I constantly not satisfied unless I'm not only able to do my best, but very quickly able to be one of the best? And it's irrational, and it's just folly, it's absolutely ridiculous, but yet the standard exists in me, and it's and I don't like it. I think it's a sickness. I think it's something from my cultural lens growing up, and it's not my parents didn't put it on me, but I think they were like, I watched my mother with my daughter even, and it's very performance. Oh, that's so wonderful, just over amplifying the smallest things that they do. And I think I grew up with that, whether it was coloring in the coloring book or playing baseball, just getting supported for every small thing I did right, and therefore needing to continue to do that to feel like I'm living up to the expectations.
It sounds like an interesting dilemma, because the drive has led you to the top of whatever you're doing, with who you're working with even presently today.
Yeah.
I want you to tell me a story. You talked about, hey, we're going to go down to DeLand. We're going to train. We want to be world champions. Airspeed posters are in my thing. You're dreaming. And then at the 2005 Nationals, you have to go into an extra round in a jump off against the Golden Knights, and you win. Just reflect on that.
I don't even have to. It lives in me. It's probably without a doubt, one of the top three, not only most memorable, just most powerful moments for me as a competitor. Yeah, it was the Golden Knights, right? They were the top of the top. I think did they win in 2000? Anyway, they were the top of the top. They had caught up with us or something. I don't know. But
what was the name of your team at that time?
We were DeLand Fire. So we were
DeLand Fire.
We were a hired team. Natasha Montgomery, who was a younger jumper, who had the subsidy, had this financial backing to hire three of us as player coaches. And Ian Bobo and myself, Gary Smith was Ian Bobo, myself, and Gary Smith. Gary had just won the 2004 World Championship, so he was fresh off of that. And Ian and I had kind of retired. In 2001, the PD Factory team, as a four-way team, had disbanded, and we had made it a canopy piloting team, and we were setting sail on canopy piloting, but we had not achieved our four-way World Championship that we dreamed of. We had kind of written it off. And Natasha comes around and she hires us. And so here we are, Nationals, round 9. I think we were ahead and going up. I think maybe I'm misstating this, but I think we were leading and they caught up with us in the last round or so, and it sent it into a jump off. And the jump off was a fast round. And so for those who don't know four-way, like when you have fast round, I believe it was 5 randoms. I believe it was a 5 random sprint, which just means there's tremendous potential for high score, because it's a fast pace. But with that many points the potential for that many points, there's also the potential for that many errors. And one little error can suddenly turn into 5 or 10 errors, like a huge stumbling block. Whether you try to keep that out of your mind or not, it's in there. You know that's the potential of the round, and so you just got to keep it together. That's the main goal, is keep it together, but go fast. You got to be working right there on the line. And that's all I can tell you is we kept it together. And just to make this a little more dramatic, we were in Paris Valley. Paris Valley does everything over the top, right? They had a stage. There was probably 70 teams competing, and they waited and let all the teams finish, and then they sent us and the Golden Knights up on an otter together. So we're in the plane together. You could hear a pin drop at the silence in the plane all the way to altitude, and then we land, and we both have our videos, but we got to take it to the judges, and it's going to be judged live by the poolside on the big screen TV in front of all of our peers. And it couldn't be more exciting, James, than to have all of your peers watching this happen. Well, of course, as teams, we quickly watch the video over the shoulder of our video man and count our own scores just to see how it fared, But we don't know. We walk in there and we stand there side by side with the Golden Knights, and they play the video. They play the Knights video, and the Knights I believe they have a bobble or a bust, and it kind of derails for a second, and then they pick it back up and finish. And we knew our score, not judged, but unofficial. We knew that we had a clean round. And so even before ours is played, we have a moment of kind of like, yes, we've got this, we've got this. But you don't know until it's judged, because anything can happen. That was it. Then they played ours, and while it's being judged, the clock's going down, and you see 2, 3, 2, 1, and you see the score has surpassed the Knights, and it's just like an eruption, and we've just won the national championship in the most fascinating or most nail-biting way to win a national championship. It's just amazing. It's just amazing.
That's the dream, isn't it?
It's the dream. And then we went on to win the following year World Championship. And I guess to kind of dampen things a little bit, the World Championship was a 5-round affair. So the weather kind of cut it off short. That'll always be a little dagger to the heart, except that we were round by round, we were increasing our lead, and I can always feel like we were moving to a secure position as the winners,
In having empathy, I think about what it must have been like on the ride to altitude, and the nerves, the adrenaline are so high that how do you contain it in order to perform so that it doesn't overwhelm you? So much of this is about mental toughness, not just, physical ability. Do you remember that feeling? Yes, it was. I
do. I mean, I remember it at a sense of I'm familiar with that feeling from years of having that, and all that is a heightened round one feeling. Four-way competitors often, or FS competitors, or skydiving competitors often refer to the round one energy. It's like you can't recreate it, you can't simulate it. It's just what round one feels like, and it's this feeling of we've got to go, like we got to come out of the gate strong, and we better control it. We need a clean round in order to build on it in the subsequent rounds. So there's this dilemma of charge, and we'll keep it in control, and it's the same on a jump off like this, especially a high speed jump off. It's like we need to be running fast, and we can't mess up, so yeah. I mean, but one of the beauties of skydiving is you spend a lot of time visualizing more than many other sports. It's actually part and parcel of the nature of a silent sport where you can't communicate, right? So we get a high, what's the word? We get I can't think of the word, but we do that a lot. We do a lot of visualizations. So we were ready for it. I was ready for it. We were ready for it. And I think they were too, but it was our day.
As an observer now, as an OG watching FS, is there anyone that you observe going, the mark's on him, this guy or this team?
No, I'm such a dull. I hate to be this guy. As soon as I give something up and move on, I move on, and I'm not even a good follower. Like I don't follow four-way anymore.
do you, with your sort of new career path, if you will, does this everything we're talking about seem like a distant memory as you're so enveloped in what you're focused on
very
now?
Very much. Recently, I did a team alignment. The work I'm doing now with leadership, I did a team alignment with the PD Factory team, the current PD Factory team, and I was just in preparing for that. I just became very close terms with the realization that I've not followed them either for years. I've totally neglected my care for them as a team, and so I'll even take it a step further. I almost sometimes take on this attitude, this posture of, like, I look back at four-way people who are just training hard and spending their time and their money and all this, and I think, what idiots! Why are you devoting so much of your life to this? And I mean, this can be with anything that I've moved on from. And so I'm telling you this because I don't agree with it, but it's what happens to me. I'm kind of like, it's almost like I'm looking at my old self going, why would you do this? Why do you do this? So I'll probably be looking at who I am now one day later going, why did you spend all your time with business teams trying to help them get better at what they do?
If you don't mind, I know you've talked about this a lot. Your accident in 2010 you referred to as one of the best things to ever happen to you. I think a lot about crossroads moments. If a certain event didn't happen or we didn't take a certain path, where would our lives be today? How has your life changed? Why was that event a good thing?
I've thought about this, obviously, because we've talked about it, but I've thought about it a lot. And I want to give you the headline before I dive deep, if I dive deep. There's a couple of big areas. The first big area is it gave me this crazy vantage point of the brevity of life. And what that did, what that has done, how that's played out for me is I'm just overly attuned to every minute, every day, every week, every month, every year, like how I spend my time. And so when you've said you see me as, intentional and all the things you said earlier, it totally resonates with me. It's true, and it's even more true since my accident. I'm less likely to take things for granted than I used to, and if I do, I'm quick to recognize it and get back on the right posture. But the other thing it did was it shook me up religiously. And I don't know if we've talked about this, James, and we can save the depth for another conversation, but it really caused me to question. So a lot of people, I was a strong Christian going into this, and a lot of people, like my mom, would think that this would only validate my faith, and it had the opposite effect. But I haven't abandoned my beliefs or my understanding of the Bible and those things. It's just caused me to question my assumptions and look at a bigger worldview. I feel like what has happened is I've expanded my spirituality, not done a 180, not abandoned what I used to believe, but I no longer see Christianity as the one single way to eternity, or to everlasting peace or whatever it is, everlasting life. I no longer see that as to the source, the creator, the one. So I know this is a little bit of a pivot that you didn't expect, and it's been hugely liberating. So I'm sitting before you now, as someone who doesn't take things for granted, who is very conscientious about how I spend every moment of my life, and who doesn't subscribe to any single religion anymore. And it's taken me the better part of 6 years to be able to say that comfortably without feeling like I'm blaspheming the religion I once ascribed to and all the people who brought me there.
I would say I've been on a similar path. I think I have far more questions than I ever have answers. And maybe there's a period in my life where I thought this is how it is. Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. The purpose of this podcast is not really necessarily just to talk about skydiving, but who you are as a person. So that's awesome to hear that.
Well, good. It seemed like it might have been off topic a little bit, but it's in there now. You can cut it if you need to.
I wouldn't want to. I wouldn't want to. This is what I want to get into is who you are as a person. So let's talk about, since the accident, you've now gone down a different career path, but you're married and you're a dad. How has fatherhood changed you?
How hasn't it changed me? It changes everything. I mean, I guess the headline is, I don't know if this is a gradient or a polarity, but like if you think of the poles of joy and terror, on each end of that spectrum, mine have gone out farther than they ever did before. So I've experienced joy like I've never experienced before, and terror or fear or worry or anxiety like I've never experienced before. And I've come to believe that's probably fairly true for most parents, because the joy is it's something that's hard to describe. Every second of every day, seeing your child develop and learn and change and grow and mirror is just joy that's hard to speak of. And then, I mean, it's a pure joy, right? I'm touching my heart right now. I mean, it's pure and it's at the essence of where joy radiates from. And then the terror is the same. Just the worry of, especially as an older father, I was 46 when we had her, and starting older like that has the effect of causing me to be more anxious about leaving her earlier than I would like to.
How do you manage that anxiety?
I don't. I think I don't sleep very well. I use a lot of sleep aids, and I'm learning to meditate and to breathe and do all of those things, and to try to remind myself that none of that is in my control. So like worrying about, so many of our worries and anxieties are really just futile because they're out of our out of our control. And especially that, like when I'm going to kick the bucket is completely not in my jurisdiction, right? I can try to prevent it as much as possible, but never know when it's going to happen.
This podcast is sponsored by Beyond Marketing, the digital marketing agency for the skydiving industry. As avid podcast consumers ourselves, we're not fans of ads during a podcast, so we'll spare you the details about why we love building websites and helping businesses show up in Google search results. But just know this, we're passionate about the skydiving industry and how it markets itself. Look us up at dropzone.marketing. Again, that's dropzone.marketing. Shannon, I think, on that term of anxiety, and I find you to be brave in the fact that you're willing to be vulnerable, whether it be speaking about your faith or about difficult things in your life, whether it be your brother, your dad. I'm curious. I want to learn from you here, and maybe this could be a benefit to others too. You've had a lot of loss in this sport. You've lost a lot of friends, teammates, nearly your own life. How do you manage that? How have you been able to manage that?
What I'm not playing with you here, but what do you mean when you say that? What are you thinking of when you say, how do you manage that?
Okay.
And like, because the obvious is that it's behind me, right? Mm-hmm. So the quick answer is I don't. There's nothing to manage. So I think I think it's a good question. I think you mean something by it. But say a little more about it if you would.
Yeah, so to feel grief and watching people who you are close to lose their life in something that you yourself are doing on the daily, pushing. How do you keep pushing when those that are doing the same thing of you, there's such loss and grief, and you're able to pick yourself up and grieve, but still continue driving forward? Like, to me, I would think, man, I might be inclined to stop.
Well, I mean, interestingly, to back into this, where I am right now, I have stopped, and it's been largely because I have a child, not because I lost others that way. Mm-hmm. In the previous years, and honestly, just to throw another little piece in there for those listening, like the other big part is that I'm in a lot of pain, and when I jump, the pain is accentuated. And that's a real thing. And then also, I'm so not visibly fragile, but my spine and my neck are very fragile. The slightest wrong move could be traumatic for me. So I've become aware of that, and it's changed the way what I choose to do with my time. How I actively. But in the previous years, and I think think about skydivers, other skydivers too. Like when they lose people, we're quick to get back on the horse and just keep riding away. And I think it has something to do with a couple of things. Skydivers, I've had this conversation with a lot of other jumpers too, like about our understanding of death and our appreciation for life and death and what that means to us. And I think there are a lot of us who really don't see death as the end all, and who therefore aren't fearful of that moment in time, and in fact, if you, and it's hard. The only reason I'm hesitating here is because I know how little time we have left, and I know how big this topic is. I want to go back into the religion a little bit. Like, I've quit subscribing to Christianity as a religion, but my view of eternal life now is different than I get resurrected and I go live in heaven, this place, that's very human-like, walking around with lions and tigers and bears, oh my, but I am living eternal life right now, and it carries on, and it was, and it is, and it will be. And the reason I'm bringing that up in this context is because I think a lot of us as skydivers, we've come to, like, I don't know if you've ever been to a skydiving funeral or memorial, but it is so liberating. It is so freeing. It is so beautiful and exciting and fun and celebratory and so opposite of what many of your traditional funerals are like in the world around us. And so I think that's the energy that is in us when we pick up the baton and we keep running the race after our friends have parted, is that, we say it in the context of they would want us to. And that's true. I think they would. I think we believe they would, and I think that they would. I know when I go, I would want them to continue, you know? So we do it in the honor of that and in the recognition of that. And we also do it because we see life as being so much bigger than this one little moment. And let's go make the most of it now. This current life and this current costume, let's go make the most of it now, right?
Great answer. What are you dreaming about now, Shannon?
I am dreaming about a lot of things. I'm dreaming about a few things that I've been dreaming about for a long time and making minor steps is writing books. I want to speak on bigger stages and really light people up. And I have a newer dream in the leadership coaching world that I'm in. I've gotten into Formula 1 and I really have it's one of these BHAGs from Jim Collins, Good to Great, you know, the big, hairy, audacious goal of coaching a Formula 1 team. That's what I would really like to do.
Any particular team in?
Well, yeah, if you watch the Netflix series, you kind of fall in love with all the teams. So that's what makes it a great show. But I really like the Mercedes team. One, because of Lewis Hamilton, obviously, but Toto Wolff, the director of the team, and also one of the owners of Formula One, the entity. I just really like him. I like the team. The Red Bull team would be great. I mean, a lot of the teams I would love to work with. But I don't just mean the driver. Like for any people following Formula One, it's a massive team of you know, the pit crew and all the people, the engineers and the builders and all the people behind it. What makes it possible, you know.
Have you met Lewis Hamilton yet?
No, but the 7 degrees of separation. So like Luke Aikens and Andy and those guys, they jump into some of the races and they've met some of the Red Bull teams. So I'm hoping to maybe crack a door through some of those connections.
Interesting.
Yeah.
What podcast are you listening to?
Mainly Sam Harris, Andrew Huberman, Tim Ferriss, and Joe Rogan.
Any books you're into or any books that have had a profound effect on you?
I read a lot, and so it's a recency effect more than anything. I think I've been trying to read some fiction because I don't read enough of it, and it always consumes me. Like those are the kind that are page turners, and you can't put them down. You know, even being sleepy doesn't. Like I can't fall asleep when I'm reading a good fiction book. You know, and I've read a couple lately. I read one called Musashi. It's a fictional story about a real samurai, but it's quite embellished, and it's amazing work of fiction about the samurai days. Most recently from a nonfiction, what did I just finish? It was a superb book. Let me think of it. Oh, no, it was random off the shelf. I picked it up in the Israeli consulate in Miami a few weeks ago, and they said I could take it. And it's, I don't remember the name of it, man. I got to find it for you. Hang on. Well, since we're on here, the clock here, I took a photo of it. Thou shalt innovate. And it's meant to sound biblical, you know, to be a play on the Jewish religion, but then the subtitle I don't remember, but it's about the way that Israel has Israel's 50 greatest innovations to the world to help the world be a better place. And then the index has the top 200 innovations, but it's like 15 chapters, and each chapter is one of the big innovations coming from Israel. And it's just phenomenal what this country has managed to do. So I picked it up and I couldn't put that one down. Really, really good. Is there anything that you're excited about right now? Don't I sound excited with the things I was just telling you about?
I mean, you do.
I'm just short term. I'm excited about like the next 2 months. I don't have a lot of work while we're in Israel. So July and August, it's a lighter load. And that means we can have a fun time with our friends and family while we're here. We're going to go to Norway in August for a wedding anniversary for a week. And that's a really great time. And then I think in the long term, the midterm, I'm really excited about I've enrolled in a coaching program. So I'm getting my coaching credentials from the International Coaching Federation. I started in January. I had to put it on hold. So I'm picking that back up in September. Yeah, so it's just really exciting. I want to get those credentials. I love the one-on-one leadership coaching, life coaching, whatever genre you want to go down. But I love the coaching, and I want to really put more tools in my toolbox and get the credentials behind my name, because it makes me more marketable.
Shannon, thank you so much for your time. I've
welcome.
Really enjoyed it. We've hit it all.
Yeah, we hit a lot of points. Yeah, I feel like we could keep going, but
we most certainly could.
I'm grateful. Thank you.
I'm very grateful. I look forward to seeing you in October as you are inducted into the International Skydiving Hall of Fame.
Will you be out there?
I will be there. I will, right. Most certainly.
I look forward to it too, James. Thank you for having me on the show.
Thank you, Shannon. A pleasure as always.
Talk to you soon.
Thanks so much for listening to the 20-Minute Call podcast. Please do follow us on your podcast app so you always have the latest episode downloaded. And leave a review if you really enjoyed the episode. If you want to contact the team, our email address is info@beyondmarketing.xyz. This episode was edited and engineered by Garnet Znydrick of the YouTube channel Blue Skies, Fun Days. Thanks for listening, and join us in 2 weeks for our next episode.